Hey, this is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question that is talking about how to deal with covert narcissist abuse. Covert narcissist abuse, particularly what happens if it's in the classroom. The teacher, a covert narcissist who likes to basically create a room where they're willing to uphold and put on a pedestal, have dancing on a desk, showing off their talents, their writing, or what have you, especially when you're in the 6th to 8th grade range. You know how sensitive a time that is for a child. 11, 12, 13, these are really formidable years where that child is really getting a sense of their own efficacy, their own ingenuity, meaning I am effective, I have resourcefulness, I am good at this, good at that, have fun at this. It becomes a natural development. You don't have to tell a rose to open up and become a rose. A rose is going to be in a little bud, but then it's going to open up. Oh, you don't have to. You rose, you better open up, you ugly tied up thing. A narcissist, what happens when you have narcissism in the classroom? Covert narcissism in a family system as well, where it's so convenient for a narcissist to only uphold and call to attention and share the limelight with those who they feel are a good reflection of themselves. A narcissist who is entitled, even as a teacher, will promote, promulgate, and support, basically put in front of the class, those people who they feel are a direct extension of them and make them look good. But a teacher is not there to satisfy their needs. A teacher is there to help a classroom. Just like with a family, if you have a narcissistic parent, you've got poor parenting, a narcissistic parent who is all about judging and labeling, especially as the ego is involved. You are good, you are smart, you are handsome, you're an extrovert, you're a giggler, you're so social, all these different things that can typify youth at that age. A covert narcissist as a teacher or in a family can really do a lot to downplay the progress, growth, happiness, and self-discovery and joy, just personal, natural unfolding, namely in a place of safety and sanctity, which means where you can be safe and not worry about your being exposed to judgment. Meaning, why is that always mixed into the sauce? The child's trying to, gonna try to, have all sorts of self-protective body language, and they don't need to go through this. An intervention with adult is very gentle. When we're talking about a covert narcissist, they will then also shame a child in a classroom or just not give attention to a child who, they're labeling as maybe an introvert, someone who keeps a lot to themselves, who doesn't want to be the way the teacher wants them to be. Hey, guess what? If you give a rose to a teacher and the teacher goes, "Why aren't you a carnation?" Well, that teacher's a fool. They can't see what's right in front of them. So if you can understand a narcissist who's really truly that severe, and they use other very painful tactics for manipulation, a narcissist, the first way for them to make them look good is to make others around them look bad or in trouble. And this is a way of degrading, creating fear. You see this in people who are all about themselves. And just the way that they talk to people at a restaurant, at a retail shop, to their children, to other children, as if they're the boss and everybody else is a servant to them. It's sort of a condescending tone and reference point, very hurtful and shaming to others. Like, and just the looks that could paralyze, looks that could kill, things that are slamming and shaming, meaning there's a permanent inefficacy about you for some reason. A narcissist will project all sorts of negativity and blame if they don't feel or they don't have the ability to see beyond their own ego. In other words, their ego is in the wrong place. The ego, as according to Freud, is all about judgment. And this is especially painful time where kids are very susceptible and impressionable to judgment, meaning you are, and then the scales, oh boy, if these scales are tipped against you, you're going to have a lot of work. You're over here, or you're up here, you're the little guy, you can't even get anything in here. They might call them a name, pipsqueak, imbecile. All kids will, do terrible things to shame their, other kids too, let alone their teachers. So a covert narcissist remains very aloof, an abandonment to a child, in those ages. They take it as an attack, meaning like rejection, and it's the same fight or flight that is elicited, flipped on in that child. It's like they're expected to be seated in math class while simultaneously running away from a saber-toothed tiger, or that same system, that limbic system that jolts you into activity. Is jolting me right now to make this video. Hey folks, this ain't fair. This ain't right. We are dealing with this. Okay, that is unacceptable. To ignore, to shame, meaning to make embarrassed. The sign language for good is like this, good. I worked with the hearing impaired, this is good. And if you're saying something is bad, it's the opposite. You're saying bad. You're squashing it and it's unpresentable. Good, so shaming, making them small, bad, and then their face, angry. That's sign language for angry. They'll use this sort of cold and aloof, meaning if you ignore a child, the child needs that adult's attention. It is not able to procure food for itself. It's not able to procure housing. That is why it's in there in school, to learn and to focus. But if you're running away from a saber-toothed tiger, you're fearful, you're being labeled by a teacher, and they're trying to set you up for a failure. But what they say is kind of like, what they're saying can only go so far. What are they, a magician? That they can just name the future? No, that is their tactic, though, is to sort of get them off their plate, get them off their to-do list, get them off the hook from having to have special and say, hey, take time and say, hey, oh, something's not right here. Well, let's help this. I mean, that's what the teacher is there for. They're supposed to be there to guide, navigate, and help the child, not to make them more vulnerable. This is where, in the confines of that school, every day they're learning to explore and navigate and be resourceful and to guide themselves and to have positive self-reference. And so how do you deal with something that can't be recognized? In other words, you can't go then to the problem and go, hey, oak tree, why aren't you a maple, and why aren't you have syrup coming out? If you're dealing with a covert narcissist, that's like an oak tree. We can't go to the oak tree. Why don't you have any maple syrup? You're all here. They have a different fiber. They have a different outpouring of themselves. They have a different fruit, if you will. So why is it then, or how do we deal with it? Where number one, like in dealing with a child, yes, you need for them to understand that there are some adults who don't have their footing, especially if they're supposed to be guiding the adults, guiding the children, and they don't have their footing, or they're shaming the child. They're creating more of a problem and basically trying to maybe get them thrown out, or they have other things that they think that they as a teacher shouldn't have to deal with this, or shouldn't have to have this in the classroom. That is an ego. Okay, so if we can just, in the privacy of this video, understand that narcissists do not like to be challenged. Even if they're wrong, you're supposed to have a conversation with them, but they will forever be aloof. They will forever, it'll not resonate. It will not stick. It will not stick. So to deal with a covert narcissist, you have to realize that they are not the resource. And you have to say, okay, getting in the clear, that is my goal here. So rather than just, saying that this is a problem, just let's frame things in the positive. Let's use reframing, meaning how do we look at this energy? How do we look at this whole situation as an energy? Okay, as its own energy. So you're separate and distinct. It's just kind of like out there. And so if you understand that this is an energetic vibration that you're not a match to, you do not want to step into the boxing ring. You do not want to have every day look like you've got a hit to the cheek, a hit to the gut, come out, smaller and smaller. You're getting scoliosis because your I am doesn't even allow you to walk straight or sit up straight, slouched over, depressed, not alert. These are not formidable states for children, especially who are, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, who are 11 through 13. This is where they're getting their sea legs straightened. They're keeping their firm footing, and, you got to keep them away from that imbalance. So if you realize that there's an imbalance, there's an overwhelm in that classroom or that family energy. So you need to reframe it and just say, and it's not leading to a foundation that is a stable foundation, and knowing inside that this is what you want, but you can't see it yet. So just knowing this inside, that you need something, even though you don't know how they're going to comply, but just identifying and reframing the situation. And coming to realize that this is just an energy, and you're just speaking out and finding your voice, where of course they're trying to be telling you don't have a voice. Oh, that's good news. I don't think so. You, in this day and age, you have to have a voice. You have to speak up. You have to say, I need, I want, I think, I feel. I feel. I know. How do you talk to a trigger? You first talk to yourself. I feel, I know. You've got to you've convinced yourself already. I know, and you can just repeat that. I know, and I feel, and I know, and I feel, and just to allow to say these things, even if your knees are trembling, your voice is trembling. Get it to the point where you feel and own and believe. It might take a day or two. It might be right now. If you're suffering at the hands, I feel and I know something else is required. I feel and I know something else is required. You're going from a confidence to requirement. It's not need, want. It's not being labeled. It's a must. So your body, your statement, your verbalization, I must be loved. I must love myself. I must have a standard. I do have a standard. It grows, it evolves. Your I am is meant to grow. I have, I am. I know. And once you begin to inhabit the I know, something else is required, something different. And it does not then simultaneously shame or judge the offender, because you cannot simultaneously be in focus and joy, bliss, and and seeing the positive vision while simultaneously have your finger pointing in the SHI you know what fan and saying, why aren't I clean? Get your hand out of the fan, wash yourself off, okay? Do not, how do you deal with it? You realize that's an energy that you do not have a good energetic match. It's more like a confession to yourself. I am not a good energetic match for an abuser. This is what you must know within yourself. I know I'm not a good energetic match to oversee my daughter being counseled by an abuser. I am not helpless. I am in the know. I am in the now. And once you start getting through that into a power, and you use objective words like is required, meaning you're not engaging or the outcome of this individual. You're looking at your own clear track, which is going to evolve to something much more global, the gestalt of it all. But you must have a felt vision, seen vision. I know. And that's the state, though, which is very difficult because a covert narcissist just doesn't want to deal. They feel that they're coming from some sort of a position when people feel that they are entitled or they only deserve to engage with those of superior or above knowledge. I mean, so if you have a kid that makes this teacher look good, that's the kid that the teacher wants. I mean, you as a parent, you can't have I want a kid who makes me look good. What kind of goal is that? You know, what kind of I need a teacher. I need a kid who makes me look good. That I don't think that's a great perspective as a teacher. That to me is what a covert narcissist is like. They're not wanting to engage on a certain level unless they sort of look good, unless they are capable, competent. Hey, if they're easy breezy, well, it makes the teacher look good. Hey, kids, why don't you counsel each other? I don't have to do the work. What if there's a kid who's an introvert? Someone who's got a softer me, who's got a gentler me, who doesn't need to put on a facade of being the popular, being the kid with the coolest clothes, the kid with the whatever, just allowing to be without judgment. You know, any kid has got to show up in life and not be judged. You know, so the education is educare, to bring out, you know, and to evolve, which means, you know, to become of their own. It doesn't, you know, I mean, you might help snip and guide and prune, but that child is going to have a life direction, which as a mother, you want to nurture. And if that's yourself, yeah, you need some help identifying that there's some neglect here. In the classroom, hours spent, you know, looking at numbers, you know, in the decline. Something else is required. You know, specialized instruction, getting a tutor, school supplied, you know, having coaching, school supplied, you know, and or you know, or what have you. But that a child should not be shamed, made fun of, or ridiculed, because that then will keep them always out of focus on themselves in their own evolution. It keeps them distracted for fear that they're going to have retaliation or abandonment. So they learn to sort of always be on the lookout, or to be a false, you know, to sort of be to be only good in the eyes of another, but not really owning it themselves. In other words, allowing others to dictate who they are rather than being who you are, or dictating or knowing. So you must to heal and to deal with a covert narcissist, You must understand that is their energy, and get it to a very. That's why I use comparisons, so you can apply it and just sort of understand in a better reframing way. In other words, if this is an oak tree and you're wondering why it's not a maple, just have then a stage of acceptance. If you can get to a state of acceptance, which is not fear, which is devoid of fear. You have to get to that space and have that conversation. And if you have to go in and involve other professionals, then by all means. And you just, this, there seems to be some overwhelm in this, or something else is required, and just in having a speak up, but knowing that teacher, the erroneous one or the covert narcissist, isn't going to change or satisfy or be able to be the one who is like course corrected. Generally, you're going to need a different type of presence, which is okay. If you can, in your heart, if you can accept the oak tree is the oak tree is the oak tree. It's not good, bad. It is what it is. If you can admire it for what it is, it gives a great shade. It has beautiful color, other things like that. But you cannot, you're not a good energetic match when it takes a lot out of you due to the negativity, due to the neglect, due to the withdrawal, the withholding. So, if you kind of realize that those are the tools of the covert narcissist, it's not so much what they do, it's what they don't do. And it leaves other people having to overreach, overextend, and suffer oftentimes boundary violation because of this, and then have these sort of stressful, and it's traumatizing, as a result of that syndrome. And realize, and those are learned distractions. Those are learned distractions. Oh, but all this peace and harmony, I've been doing this is my whole, okay, well, these are all distractions. Peace and harmony, what if that's what I have in my life right now? Well, then there comes an acceptance. There's an oak tree, a maple tree, and a cherry tree. What more do you want to nurture in your life? You have the clarity and the choice, but you must come to an understanding of acceptance of someone who is of this, and that you can't step into any sort of boxing ring, punching, combative nature, because they will draw and sort of bring to conflict or overextension of others in order to overcompensate for them. So realize that something more is needed, and there needs to be another supply source, another support source at the school, in the family, in the neighborhood, in the community, that can be a good energetic match, that gives them a feeling, oh, I know what's going on. Give me this type of book, this type of how can I use this in a fun and meaningful way, and get back to the square where I am, and I am okay. And so it is. And being an introvert, you don't have to be like everybody else. You'll know that in time, but as an adult, you know that in your heart is in time. Someone who is introvert, they need time to themselves to reflect. They don't have to be the biggest player. They don't have to be what a narcissist needs them to be. That's not the goal of their life. The goal of your life is not to please a narcissist, even though it might have been educated or reinforced to be that way. That is not your life purpose. And that's but once you get to an acceptance spot, you're then able to be more available for the now, where there's a lot more energy. People who have sort of suffered at the hands of a covert narcissist, and have sort of in their younger years been sort of needed to be trailblazers, but in a sort of hidden or secretive way. That's sort of a painful, difficult to communicate situation. Sometimes and beyond words, scary beyond words, feeling lost beyond words, but needing to really thrive at that time is really a motivator, and to find where you fit in, what your strengths are, and how the teachers or adults, as you grow and progress, how they then relate to you. And people can be very influential. Hey, you're so good, you'd be good at doing this. If they're doesn't mean that they just, hey, if they're not in theater, if they're not into this, they might be into math club, they might be into debate, they might be into computer programming. I mean, there's all sorts of things, but it is to allow them to have a flower of their being. If they're flowering, and it looks like a tulip, you can't put rose petals on them and say, oh look, the person's going to feel like you're not relating to them for who they are, that they're always trying to look to them through the lens of their own tulip jar. In other words, if you can't be, it is just, it's an erroneous way of thinking. And then but the thing is that those anxiety states are taught and learned. So it's very important to realize that you can tell yourself or tell your teacher. It's very important that you don't teach yourself to be really afraid. That's not a good thing to teach yourself. It's good to be aware and cognizant and feeling happy and being able to have a voice. Even if it's negative, it doesn't have to come out where I anger somebody or yell, or I can vocalize. I do have a voice, and I'm going to allow that to be shaped as a child, but that child needs to get it out. Or someone who has stuffed all their feelings. I mean, you can even see them, they're always putting their lips in, biting their lips, lip biting problems, and you got all the people with the puffy lips. Oh, brother. Okay, so and so once again, it's getting then to a certainty, and then realizing that is just how these people are, and it can be very pressure. It can feel like a lot of pressure. It can feel derogatory. It can feel like it hangs over you, meaning you're not over it, which you are. But you might need a little hand up, knee up to just, see where your responsiveness and your real heart lies in the midst of this. And I am of greatness, and that child should feel that, and for whoever they are. And all those looks are merely just, the negative winds of their own emotions sweeping across their face. It has nothing to do with you. It's just the winds that they've created that wrinkles their face, that scowls their look down, that is very forceful in nature. It doesn't give, David Hawkins' power versus force, it becomes a fallacy versus a truth. And you're then able to inhabit more of the present and have a lot more energy available when you inhabit that space where you're understanding that you don't have to live up to any sort of fear or drama expectations, realizing that you have the hand in the helm, even though you've been treated as if you're invisible. You're an invisible child, you're a numbskull, you're whatever all the negative names that kids can get nowadays. You're unbelievable. All the shaming, healing the shame that binds you. John Bradshaw, oh my gosh, get that book, hear the audio book. That used to be on PBS when I studied that when it first came out. Healing the wounded inner child. Very, very progressive. So what ends up happening if the child is hurt and isn't dealt with out in that at that time, in that crossroads, they bottle up their emotions, and they become sort of that age where they didn't get their needs met, and they sort of grow and then bottle it up within them. So oftentimes there's this inner child that still needs to grow, to play, but needs to grow in its own way that is satisfactory to itself and not the hands of some other shaper or sculptor. It's coming from within. It's more of an inner drive or inner knowing or balance of pleasure, and that you don't have to keep clamoring or worrying about the future or seeing something is unsettled from the past, but allowing yourself to just be unplugged from that drama of, just to be, meaning not in that energetic space. And it's okay, you can go back to it, in whatever amount, but sort of unplug and come to that space with a determination and a focus, exactly what you feel perhaps that child is missing, you are missing, and begin to feed that into your inner drive. Don't allow yourself to fall unsatisfied, bewildered, not to inhabit those states. Out of all those states, been there, done that, got the muck boots, okay? Got the dirty car, got the unhappy pictures, not interested in putting a GPS back, delete, okay? If you want, you might, pull it up on the GPS later. Always give yourself like an in out. But eventually you need to realize and give yourself some clout that it's better for you than the teacher. So you kind of have to have a higher consciousness, meaning if you revisit your younger self, or in this instance, the viewer is wondering about, how do I gain focus and speak to, say, a principal who's a real trigger. Just don't, or think of them as just having their own separate space that you're not engaging in. If they have stormy emotion, you're sitting in a lake of peace and harmony you're just dangling your feet in, as if you just pulled up on one of those little bars in Mexico with the seat and your feet are in the pool water and there's little music off. That's how you should just be. That's how you should just be. And you shouldn't have to be putting something in front of you, holding, I've got this kind of watch, so I'm a this, without just allow that to be states. You have to practice and rehearse, and realize that it's okay for you to communicate in the way that you see fit, that you gain focus, and not just an upper hand, but literally an upper conscious upper hand, and show things like numbers objectively. Example for this teacher, some attention here is required. This form of learning is not geared towards this style that this child is needing. So you have to realize that child might have another style, some that it could be rebellious, but some of it might be really important and beneficial. Some, children need their parents to set a positive structure and set a positive vision for them. Teachers are also very influential in children, just like supplied to a narcissist. They will act in ways sometimes that are out of focus or distracted to try to get that adult's attention, just to know, hey, if I fall, if I fail, will you be there? The child needs to know. And so, but if they know and that the child is there for themselves and they don't have that fear, then they don't have to have a sort of, They don't have to sort of have an outlet for a negative emotion. And they should be able to get something else established, a different curriculum, a different book, a different teacher with a different style, move the class, whatever time of semester, but make it, imperative. Talk to a psychologist, talk to a social worker. Is there someone else we, can get involved in this? Is there a nice person at the school, in the neighborhood, who you would consider nice? Or are you the nicest and bestest? You have to be the one to take responsibility. And it doesn't mean that you go there in armor and you're punching someone else. That's not of your focus at all. A good reframe it all. Other materials and teaching is required here. I mean, just it be that obvious. And we are here as a group. You know, it's not just one against one. Other people involved need to be able to stand up and know and reconcile for that individual. Just like with a covert narcissist or people who have a covert narcissist husband, they just, are always on the default mode. They do not always rise to the occasion. And so help yourself to rise to an occasion. And then so you must just say within, I have risen. I have risen. And, and if you repeat these certain B states, you'll allow sort of that almost like an emotional helium to come through where you can go there with grace and comfort, and you're not shaking, you're not sweaty, you're comfortable. Maybe you got a hot chocolate or something, but you're just doing you. You're not doing the principal. You're not doing the covert narcissist. You're not doing the shaming. You're not, and just how do we address these things? And, you don't want to, video or whatever things you might need to say, but there doesn't need to be any more suffering. There doesn't need to be any more unlearning. We're not here for failure. We're not here to be set up for failure. Thank you very much. That's a terrible feeling if you feel you're set up for failure. I'll never make it. I just don't have it. You're on your knees compared to everybody else there, moving, shaking, grooving, and they'll make you feel smaller. How does a covert narcissist elevate themselves? Well, they can just dismiss or put down others or just ignore them as if they're a tiny snowflake in the corner. This is a strange covert narcissist behavior, and especially when you see it in a teacher. Be very, very careful of, but there is a solution. You must have that and know that in their heart that there is a solution, and then what is the solution, and then feel the solution. And, begin to inhabit that space, live that space, breathe that space, eat that space, speak on your phone from that, and then realize that you're not going to be filled with shaky knees, sweat marks, feeling that you're freaking out about the future or freaking out about the past. Why aren't you able to be in the now? What is wrong? What is so scary about it? What is so, if we can just, what scares you about that? And, they're gonna throw me out of the school district, or I don't have what it takes. Getting that confidence allows you to be accessible. And why is it you can, so if you're getting triggered, you can ask yourself, why is it so adaptive that I'm getting triggered here? Ask these questions. Why is this adaptive for me? Why is this good for me to be triggered? It's not. Then you answer your own question. Oh, it's not good for me to be triggered. Okay, I can get a lever on this. I can get a handle. It's so, and then what is then self-soothing? What makes me comfortable though is, and then without going back to the covert narcissist, without addressing their fault, without dragging them into this in a feeling state. Even though you haven't inhabited, felt it, been it, begin to know and begin to inhabit, and even in the face of a trigger. Are you calm? Are you holding it together? Is that how you want to be? And you go, oh yeah, and then what could make it better? What could make it better? I'm wearing hats. What could make it better? So you are then responsible. Then, so addressing that trigger so that no matter the outcome, you won't be upset. So it's really important that you separate yourself from the outcome. I don't know how this is going to be received. Like a lot of you are saying, I'm so surprised you don't have more viewers. I don't know either. Somehow, either way, you just learn to inhabit certain states and know that eventually things are going to get picked up by you, and then you can then have a confidence and know that I've done the right thing. And then why is that scary? If you are still triggered, why is it scary for me to know and do the right thing? Ooh. These are, and why is it not okay for me to be secure? Get somebody to go with you. Share this with somebody. Answer these own questions for yourself. And you'll be able to see and expose fear, which is false evidence appearing real. And you'll be able to just melt away that fear once you ask yourself, really, what is the payoff for me being fearful here? What good is it doing me? What good is it doing me? And just say, what harm is it doing me as well? What harm is it doing me? And furthermore, when you're dealing with a covert narcissist, usually it's very difficult because chances are you've been a big avoider. You've been a big procrastinator. I feel one of the energetic results of a covert narcissist with another is a procrastinator and avoider of certain things on their own life or certain growing experiences that they don't believe that they have the ability to do, be, or there's just a fear, a lingering fear. And you have to look at that and say, you have to kind of look at it and shake it out and get the breath work, so you just get the fear out and you get leverage over yourself. And you might need to have some repetition and experience. And then knowing and then saying, I am effective here. I am in the gold here. I am in the, and you don't have to use your ego. Just allow it and just allow the goodness, and just realize that you do not have to keep your eye then on certain things. You're still aware, you're still doing what's required, and your eyes are on the right things instead of the wrong things. And you're might have periods where you're more aware and listening and it makes you uncomfortable. But you're then able to comfort and present and be in the way. So you've kind of reached an inner challenge in order for yourself. And you can practice this on your recovery dates. That's what I talk about in the recovery dates, where you go and you set time aside for yourself, that sort of part of you that has a need for self-discovery, to inhabit another part of yourself. So I want to take a walk with my inner writer, or I just want to take a walk with my best man. If I were my best woman, truly, I'm going to walk and take the next 2 hours. What would I be, do, think, and have? Which is different from my everyday. So in other words, and you give yourself an experience to bring out that best part of yourself on that date, on that time that's set aside. In other words, for now, I'm going to develop just curiosity, or I'm just going to go delve into this, or I'm going to go to a museum or a church, or other things I feel that I've just are provocative of certain B states that I would like. And you don't have to explain and justify, but you put these places, these destinations, where your inner self can go and interact. So, for example, if you were, you currently don't do much, but you have a desire, like you want to be a carpenter. Well, maybe you take out your inner carpenter You go on a carpenter date. You spend an hour at the wood section. You talk to a guy about exotic woods. You go check out and have them demo some saws and stuff. They show you the gear that you need, and you talk to them. Oh, how cool would it be if I built this, or I did this? This is my, to build a house, or like what kind of, build a boat. I don't know. And then you kind of go back to your quote unquote normal life. And then the next week you take another carpenter date, and you develop, or maybe you just have an art lover date and you want to cultivate some other part of you. You want to go listen to music. You want to go to meditate, a yoga thing, but it involves kind of going out beyond what you would regularly do outside of your routine. And sort of getting geared up. And so, in other words, my best mother state, if you're triggered, what would it look like if you weren't triggered? Be it. Take a recovery date and be that, and just walk by the school, walk by another school, take a walk, and just imagine yourself going through and making that request or that presentation. Or, for example, if you're talking to your inner child there, you're just like, I've been with you the whole time, little guy. That was wild. That was a ride. You reframe it. I've been with you the whole time, little girl. This is my hand. You begin to sort of comfort that little part of you in a friendly, outreaching way. If you're, come here, little, and then what do you need? Do you need to then involve a pet in your family? Do you need to get a goldfish? Do you need to get some bunnies? I don't know. But, especially nurture that child then in addition, and you'll be able to feel, be, and experience great results and some profound deep healing states if you allow yourself. And then the solution to come out, just like the scent from a rose comes out. It's just kind of like allow your being to come out as well. Even if it sounds different, allow. What does peace and harmony mean? We'll talk about this again someday. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you, and I hope these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out. Have a beautiful day. You got this.